Looks like we're jumping into game number 5. Winner of this game takes the match, goes up 2-0 overall in the season. So this is a pretty big deal. We talked about the stakes a little bit earlier. Wild Growth is picked up for Nevada. Arizona State University, they do have an Innervate and an Ancient of Lore, which is one way that you can get really far ahead, at least on card advantage, and put a 5/5 body on the board if you're playing in the Druid versus Druid matchup. But can you risk not playing anything until turn 5?
Well, here's the big deal that I see right now. Do you keep this Wrath in your hand in fear of Darnassus Aspirant?
I think you have to. I mean, Darnassus Aspirant has affected so many classes mulligans. Handlock, all of a sudden against Druid, have to mulligan for Dark Bomb. Mages will never throw back a Frostbolt, where in the past, against Druid, that's something that you would have thrown away. Yeah.
It's a tough situation, honestly, because the other side of that is if your opponent doesn't draw Darnassus Aspirant, that's one less slot you have in your hand for potential ramp or potential minions. And
but if they do and you don't have a way to deal with it, you can get ramped out of the game.
Yeah, and so this is a spot where ASU is really, really looking to find themselves in, is to have both options of Wild Growth and Darnassus Aspirant. Which one do you go for first and why?
And here's a tricky situation. When you have both Wild Growth and Darnassus Aspirant and you're on the coin.
I think I like Wild Growthing here first.
I like the Darnassus Aspirant first.
Well, why do you like the Aspirant?
Because you play the Aspirant, your play next turn is always Wild Growth. So it doesn't matter whether or not you have 3 or 2 mana. So getting out the Wrath now to Wild Growth into the Paladin Shredder feels okay. Whereas if your opponent plays something like a Darnassus Aspirant, they're playing it on curve. If you play the Wild Growth first.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're going with that. So the Darnassus Aspirant, not only that, but it checks the other Darnassus Aspirant potentially.
Yeah.
So just that little extra one, half a step is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
I can get behind that. I think it's a good idea. But, once again, curved into Pilot Shredder.
But Arizona State
curved.
University.
Ancient Allure. So, we got a game in our hands, folks. And this is
all right, we made it past. We're holding our breath for like those first 3 turns. Like seeing, is one player just going to blow out this game? Nope. Get to the grind fest.
And 2 minion pickups. And Nevada, they're going to answer with Lotheb. And this is going to be the push. So, now at this point,
we found the aggressor.
Yeah, Nevada, looking at their hand, they don't really have an option other than to be aggressive. They have 16 points of direct damage in their hand over the course of a couple turns. It's very likely the Keeper of the Grove is going to continue to fight for the board. ASU, meanwhile, they have some direct damage, but what they mostly have is a bunch of minions. And so what they're going to try to do is force Nevada into a spot where they either get overly aggressive or have to deviate from their game plan. Either way, it's kind of win-win for them. But Nevada, I think their game plan is set in stone at this point. I think you have to keep swinging away and hope for the best.
Yeah, very true. And a couple different options here. Do you want to utilize the Innervate early and try and do something like Keeper plus Swipe here to really take control of the board? Or do you want to just play the Keeper of the Grove, maybe trade into the Paladin Shredder, and then Hero Power? But you are getting a favorable board position, but you're also leaving up a Darnassus Aspirant, which then could come back to bite you. 8 mana, going into 8 mana as opposed to 7 for a Druid doesn't really make too much of a difference. So the Darnassus Aspirant at this stage is not that big of a deal. But still, could be scary.
Yeah, I think this is a matter of whether or not you want to use the Keeper now or save it for potentially Ancient of War. I think those are your 2 big options because the Ancient of War is going to be tough to chew through.
Yeah.
They're going to use Force of Nature to try to clear this out and hope for a good Shredder drop. That's a pretty decent one, I'd say.
Well, it could be.
It can definitely get a little bit scary, but the benefit behind this is that it's not a gigantic problem. Like, the power side of it can get very high, but again, you're the ones to be aggressive in this matchup. If your opponent wants to turn on the heat here, I think you're okay with it.
Yeah. Nevada really debated there whether or not to innervate out the Hero Power to kill off the Mana Addict. I mean, there was merit to it. Now it just trades into the Paladin Shredder. But now Mana Addict, all of a sudden, gets buffed up to 3 attack. Pretty much whatever comes out of this Paladin Shredder, unless it's like a Totem Golem or Lore Walker Cho.
Oh, wow. That could be really bad for Nevada at this point because they have 1 minion left in their hand.
Get out of here, Wrath.
And ASU is going into Azure Drake and going to keep swinging on this board. And suddenly they're the ones.
The only way to get back into this is the swipe.
They may Keeper the Grove their own Lore Walker Cho
Oh,
here. I think that's
jeez.
a possibility.
Oh, geez. I mean, they can soak some Boombot hits later on in the game. That's about all Lore Walker Cho's good for when he's silenced.
ASU, though, I mean, their hand has a lot of spells in it, too. Are they fearing the Lore Walker Cho at all? Because they have to worry about stuff like Ancient of War. They have to worry about other cards coming in. Well,
they wound him.
You speak of the devil, and he appears. Dr. Boom is about the best you're going to hope for in this spot. They are a little bit behind, I think, on this board position, but you got to go for it. If your opponent has Big Game Hunter here, your alternative play is to Keeper of the Grove and not kill an Azure Drake. I don't think so. I think you got to go for the Dr. Boom and really hope here. Because, again, the Lore Walker Cho is shutting off the potential to play swipe. You give your opponent a swipe if you play it here. Lore Walker Cho, anytime a player plays a spell, the other player gets a copy of it.
Yeah, both players. It's not whoever has the card on the board is the one that benefits from it.
Just a global effect.
Just a global effect. Lore Walker Cho knows no allegiance.
He knows no bounds.
He only knows scrolls. And panda things. I don't know. Cooking.
Idioms.
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot of idioms like that.
What else do pandas like? Who knows? But yeah.
Pandas like being lazy. They like sleep.
Yeah. Not when they're injured.
Well, either way, ASU's got their work cut out for them here. The Boombots are putting a lot of pressure on kind of the ability to get things done here. They actually have to attack in these weird positions first. So it's going to be swipe and then shade and hope.
The Mana Addict lives.
For kind of a turn.
Force of Nature Savage Roar, if that thing lives, all of a sudden it's 7 attack.
It's very true. I don't think it's going to live this turn because it's vulnerable to a hero power, and Nevada happens to have 6 mana worth of cards in their hand.
There was a time in my life where I thought about putting Mana Addicts in a mid-range combo druid.
I actually did
Dark
that
times, but...
I actually did that once.
Okay, I mean, you play enough Hearthstone, eventually you get into those weird mindsets where you're like, yeah, that could be good.
You're finding the dark corners.
Yeah, the dark corners of deck building.
6 a.m.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
TJ wakes up and plays Hearthstone.
You play against the Stormer Druid enough times, you start to think anything's possible.
What a beautiful game. I think Mana Addicts might be like one of the scariest non-relevant cards.
Yeah, Light Warden. But Light Warden is pretty relevant because of Light of the Naru.
Yeah. It's so hard to play a 1/3
anywhere.
Except for Mana Worm.
Yeah, and Light Warden has merit because if you're playing it a priest or if you're playing in the form of Light Warden, you have a heal regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, unless everything is full health, including both characters, which is very unlikely.
Is getting more and more dangerous. I think ASU may have turned the corner in this one. Sylvanas can get silenced by Nevada, but that's still a 5/5 that's being left here.
And you're playing a Shade.
Yes, and the only thing they're worried about right now is like Force Nature Savage Roar, Innervate Savage Roar. That's about it. Maybe with Living Roots, they're worried about it also, but they don't have an effective way to play around it right now. They'd have to sacrifice way too much to do that. But it looks like they're going to even bring a Shade out of stealth to play around it. So
very safe.
Making sure they cut everything out as a possibility. But now does this leave them a little bit too vulnerable to swipe?
Well, it does leave them somewhat vulnerable, but Nevada also has other plays. They could Ancient of War, intervade out the Keeper on Sylvanas. But then you're leaving those Shades up. That's a little bit risky.
I feel like with one of those Shades just kind of, he's just hanging out there. The swipe's going to clean it up. You take 5 damage, you take out the Sylvanas. I feel like this is, are you just getting a better turn than this?
Yeah, I don't know. The swipe, it's actually sort of tough to get value out of swipe a lot of the times in Druid versus Druid. So when you got a 1 health minion on board and then something else that you can kill.
That's the thing, is the targets in Druid are so big that 4 damage won't even, just oftentimes doesn't kill him. Sylvanas is one of the smaller endgame minions that's in the deck.
Yeah.
I think you got to go with this play. I think it's just too much value at the end of the day to pass up. And again, you're following this up with Ancient of War and maybe even Keeper of the Grove afterwards. I think this is a fantastic way to end up playing this turn.
Definitely agree. And now Arizona State needs to draw into a threat, and that's a threat! That is a double combo that's going to get reduced in the hand. With that Shade Stealth,
that is a huge draw. Look at the faces of ASU.
They're flabbergasted.
I mean, that's the best draw in the deck.
All right, so if Ancient of War is played here, is that still enough damage to get 24 health? So double Savage Roar would allow the Emperor Thor. No, it would allow the Shade most efficiently. No, it wouldn't. That's awkward. Emperor Thorson would go up to 9 attacks.
29 points of damage next turn across the attacks. You're going to run a 6-power Treant in. You run your face in as well.
Yeah,
and
that's the most efficient.
All the rest of the damage comes crashing through, which is 6 plus 6 plus 9 plus 8.
Too many numbers.
29 damage.
29 damage?
29 damage. And they don't have a way to take out the Shade. And mind you, if they use Force Nature, they're still dead to the extra burst damage from Force Nature and Double Savage Roar. TJ, I think that Emperor Thorson just ended the game.
It did. That it did. That's more than enough damage.
Nevada, something about it too, you know, normally in this spot, you look at Emperor Thorson, you go, it's kind of dangerous, I gotta do something about this, so I can't really check it this turn. Like maybe Keeper that goes silence it. Their body language, to me, feels like they know that they're dead.
Well, you always account for the worst case scenario.
Wow. I cannot believe it. ASU, that
you know
Emperor
what?
Thorson.
They can even act like they top decked it. Because they top decked the second Force of Nature, the full cost one. They have enough mana to just do it all.
They're doing the math right now.
They should have done the math last turn.
Well, I think they're just quadruple checking it and pentuple checking it. You know, this is a turn where the numbers.
What's the most efficient way?
Yeah, the numbers have to be split up the right way for this to work. You know, you can't just run the Emperor Thorson in and then run in the Shade or something weird. And look at them. You can see all three of them. They're like, is this really that much damage? Did we really win this game?
Yeah, so like you said before, one of the 6 damage treants goes into the Ancient of War plus the face for 4. So that's a perfect 10. Then you have 8 damage from the Shade, 9 damage from the Emperor Thorson, 17 plus 12 from the other 2 treants that both have 6 attack. They're realizing that that's going to be 29 damage to the dome.
Wow. That is unbelievable. That is, wow, and look at Nevada just devastated by it. ASU, all celebrations, and how could they not be? They were behind what felt like the entire game after that Mana Addict drop. And this is the turn that gets enabled by Emperor Thorson.
With a 5 damage overkill.
By the power of Ragnaros.
Not even close,
By the power of Ragnaros, I'm dealing 26 extra damage.
Yeah.
Nevada. Extra, whatever it was.
Yeah. Nevada, they were down 2-0 in the series. They managed to mount a comeback and bring it to a Game 5. But at the end of the day, I mean, Emperor Thorson can just do some pretty insane things.